Okay.
All right, should we...
Start recording. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Hello. This
Hello.
is our first attempt at a podcast called Thank You Kindly. My name is Max.
I'm Geneva.
And I'm Zach.
And this is a podcast where it's a little bit of everything, I think. We're talking about work, talking about stuff that's not work, pop culture, you name it, we're probably going to talk about it.
So welcome.
Yes.
I mean, I do think we need to work on explaining what this is about.
Yeah. It is kind of like a work-centric podcast at its core, so I kind of feel like a good thing to do right now is to go around the room, and I feel like we should all share one thing that we could think of about just what's a not ideal work situation that we've all been in.
Ooh.
I'm gonna go with one.
Okay.
It was from my first job ever, which was Aeropostale, which is now, I don't believe it exists in Canada. I think they're still around, but I don't think they're in Canada anymore. I could be wrong.
Yeah,
but,
I see it randomly pop up, but I wouldn't be able to confirm that.
Yeah,
Right?
I think they don't exist anymore.
It was my first job ever, and I remember my manager at the time was like basically a long lost Jersey Shore cast member. When he wasn't working, he was out ordering cabs and going to the club, I would assume. But I remember my first shift, literally my very first shift, the whole idea of clocking in and clocking out was foreign to me. I've never had a job, like an actual part-time job or any job before.
How old are you?
I think I was maybe 15 or 16.
Okay.
Yeah. And I didn't clock in for my shift because I had no idea.
Right.
I just started working. And I remember at the end of my shift, it was like a 4-hour shift. I don't know. The manager said, okay, Max, you're all good. Go out and clock out. Go in the back room, clock out. You're good to go. I was like, okay, sounds good. So I go in the back room. I put in my employee number and a red little bar pops up and it says employee not clocked in. And I was like, I must have forgotten to clock in. Not a problem. So I remember going up to the manager and I was like, hey man, I'm so sorry, but there's something going on with the thing. Can you come back and check it out? He's like, sure. We go in the back room and I'm telling him, look, it says I didn't clock in. And he goes, well, did you not clock in? And I go, I don't fucking know. I guess not, but I don't really know. I didn't know what I'm supposed to do here. I didn't know that was the thing I'm supposed to do. And he goes, he's like, well, cool, bro. Thanks for the charity work.
Well, what?
Yeah.
And so you...
Did you get paid?
So,
did you get paid?
I'm pretty sure I did, but to be honest, I don't know. I'm assuming I did, but I feel like he said that because in his mind he was like, now I'm gonna have to adjust things in payroll or whatever.
Right.
Which I don't even know if he does that. I don't know what managers in retail do, but I remember him vividly saying, "Thanks for the charity work, bro." And I was like, and I laughed it off and went home and probably cried because I was like, I fucked up. They're gonna fucking fire me. Okay.
I love how you also didn't confirm. Even now, you're like, I didn't follow up on whether or not I was getting paid for that shit.
To be honest, I didn't really think much of it.
Until right now.
Aeropostale, you'll be hearing from me.
Bear in mind, if you were 15, minimum wage, we are in Canada, for everyone listening or watching, was probably $7 or $8 an hour.
Yes.
At the time.
Really, probably,
So
yeah.
you potentially lost out on
I lost out on
$37.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for the time, that was a good chunk of change.
Yeah.
So that's the one that comes to mind for me.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Do you want to go next?
Yeah, I have one. So I used to work at, actually, I don't know if I should say the name. I used to work at a shoe chain, which still exists.
Right. Okay.
It has to do with feet and things you store things in.
Right. Okay.
I worked there. This was in high school. I may have been in the 10th grade, maybe grade 9. And there was a big line of people waiting to pay for their shoes. And a man came in. He asked to try, I think it was a pair of Air Force Ones. I got it from the back. He was trying them on. And as he was trying them on, he looked at me and he was like, hey, these are great. I was like, awesome. Because there was also a commission job. So I was pretty excited about it.
Right.
And he's like, do you think I can slip you $20 and you can get this done a little quicker? I was like, I just wore rose-colored glasses and that's thought everyone was being good all the time. So I was like, oh, I'm sorry, you can't skip. I can't even for $20, I can't walk you to the front of the line. There's 30 people in line. I'm sorry. He goes, no line. Just I'll give you $20 and I'll just take the shoes. And I was like, and I was like, oh, you want to steal the shoes? And he was like, I never said that. And I was like, oh, never mind. I'll be right back. And I went to the back. It's also my first couple months. And I spoke to my manager. I was like, hey, because we were told if you ever think someone's going to steal, just give them the best customer service ever. Be right on top of them. Be like, how can I help you? How can I help you?
Right.
So I was like, I'm going to stay really close to this guy. But he asked me to steal shoes for him. And she was like, okay, I'll be out in a minute. So I just went back to him really quick. He was still there.
Right.
And I started just trying to ask him a bunch of questions. Like, what else do you want to try on? Like, can I get you, let's get you some other shoes. And then my manager came out and came up to me. I was right beside, I was like sitting as close, I was like standing like this close to where Max is to me. My manager was like, hey, where's the guy who said was asking you to steal shoes for him? And he was like a big guy too. She said that in front of the guy.
Oh shit.
God.
Oh no.
And my stomach like dropped, and he turned to me with like a death stare. Like I was 14 maybe.
Right.
I was like, and I looked at the guy and I looked at my manager. I was trying to like with my eyes say like, you're so like what are you doing?
Right.
Like, this is the guy. And I just looked at the guy and I was like, oh no one asked that. Like, they left a while ago, but they're not here anymore. And then my manager walked away, and then the guy said to me, he's like, did you tell her that I asked you to steal for me? And I was like, no, there was another guy who asked the exact same thing.
Oh my God.
And he said, he's like, oh, okay, like, cool.
What?
And then he left and he didn't buy the shit. But like,
Oh my God.
it was a bit of an anticlimactic ending as I'm telling the story.
No, but like I
But
would have been
he-
so stressed. Like
Yeah, I thought I was
going
gonna get like beat up by a customer.
I'm so confused as to if you want to. Like, why are you telling the worker that you're
just do it.
gonna
take the
steal?
Ask me to get you another pair and just leave.
And just go get the
Take
shoes. Yeah, you're obviously putting effort in.
Yeah.
What a weird request. I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
And I've heard of so much theft. I've heard about
Yeah.
so many theft stories. I've never heard that.
Like I've had shoes stolen while I was when I was working, but
Right.
like no one ever asked if
they could steal
pay me to steal them.
That is so
Yeah.
wild.
I wouldn't be stressed about getting beat up in the store. I would get stressed about having someone find me post shift
Yeah.
outside
I was
of
nervous
the
about that.
store.
Bringing it up now and thinking about it, like I remember being nervous about that too.
But also, side note, your boss coming out and being a heat bag about it, being like, so
yeah.
who wants to steal?
Yeah,
There's a
like,
customer right
that
there.
Did they do that
That-
like intentionally?
No, I think she was just like not the sharpest tool in the shed. I didn't think it through. That was also like not the right way to approach it.
Yeah, I feel like you don't say that out
Dynamic.
loud.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Jimmy, what about you?
So when I used to live in Australia, I worked in it felt like a gazillion like cafes and restaurants and stuff. And there was this one cafe that I worked at where for that moment, I was the most liked employee by my bosses. My bosses hated everyone else. And it was a married couple who ended up being pretty psycho. And so they were bullying a couple of my coworkers. There was one in particular that they were bullying a lot. And she was one of my good friends. What should I name her? Val. Okay. So they were bullying Val, and she would be crying at the end of the shift. There were other people who would cry regularly during their shift because the bosses were horrific, and I was the only one that they liked, and I was like, I'm gonna stand up for you. Fuck them. Like,
So you're like the only one who wouldn't cry every shift.
I was the only one that they didn't treat that way, and I didn't know why,
Right.
because I'm kind of brazen at times, but they were just like, all right, I guess you're in our good books for now. But I was angry about how they were treating all my friends, because when you're a traveler, you make friends with you kind of jump into the new group work setting, and you're like, oh, these are my friends because they're all also travelers, right? So I took that personally, and I was like, I'm going to bring this up at the next meeting, a meeting that Val didn't attend because she was so nervous about how they were speaking to her. So I was like, I'm going to use this moment to stand up for her. So they hosted this meeting, and it was at night after hours, and they went through all of these new ways that they wanted people to work and whatever. And it was a really awkward meeting. And at the end of it, they were like, okay, does anyone have any questions or comments or whatever? And I put my hand up and I was like, yeah. I was trying to put it in the best way possible while still being the pathological people pleaser that I used to be. And I was like, I just feel like at times it's a really high stress environment and everyone is doing the best they can. And sometimes I feel like you both, you let your emotions take hold and you take it out on some of my colleagues. And I don't think that that's fair, blah, blah, blah. And I tried to put it in a diplomatic way.
Oh, God.
Clearly not diplomatic enough, because they both just went silent. They were like, and they're like, okay, well, we're just gonna wrap this up now. And I was like, oh, okay.
Oh,
so that was on a Tuesday night, and apparently they discussed it amongst each other about whether to fire me. I didn't know this. I obviously didn't know this until I was fired. So for the next couple of days, they kept me on the roster, which is, I guess, what they call the schedule there, so that they didn't have to get someone to fill in my shifts, because I wasn't so egregious of a person that they wanted to fire me right then and there. So they waited till I was at the end of the weekly contract, whatever, because I was a casual worker. And so then on the Friday, I was having such a great time with all of my friends, and I was like, yay, this is gonna get better, like, whew. And so they pull me upstairs and they sit me down and they fire me, and they used my YouTube channel that I had at the time as ammo for why I was like not a good person. They were like, we rewatched some of your videos, and one of them was about working in customer service or working in like restaurants, and they were like, it really established, you know, who you are. And I was like, okay, whatever. So they walk me out and they're like, do not tell any of your employees on your way out that you've been fired. And they were right. Like they could have been holding my shirt for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
They were right behind me, making sure that I didn't say anything. And I was like, fuck, I was just fired. It's the only job I've ever been fired from. And I was like, oh, you know, semi freaking out. I called on my friends afterwards. We had this big group chat, and they were all so angry that 4 of them handed in their resignation. And they said, we will not come back unless you reinstate Geneva. And they're like, all right, bye. And so then they lost 5 employees within 2 weeks because it was kind of a trickle thing.
Yeah.
And then there was this like lawsuit that was brought against them by their co-owner because they were providing such a hostile environment that all these people were providing such a high turnover.
So you like started a movement.
I called it a revolution because I am dramatic, and they caught wind of me saying that, so they like guarded themselves even more, and they put it in the case and stuff. It was this crazy thing because they thought I was the leader of the revolution.
Wow. And this whole time, all I keep thinking about is the fact that this is in Australia, so this is all happening with Australian accents,
Yes.
I would assume.
Yes,
Australian
Australian
You're
accents.
fired.
Like,
Yeah.
Arnar. You gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
Wow. So you started a movement.
Accidentally.
Yeah,
I became
an accidental movement.
Yeah.
That's gotta feel good. You leaving, like people quitting over you.
That was really great because all of them knew that I was doing it to stand up for them. So I
Right.
think it was a full circle thing where they were like, fuck you. We didn't even like it here anyway. Like, and you fire the one person that you guys actually liked. All right. See ya.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Wow. Australia. Crazy.
Right?
I want to go so badly. You lived
you
there.
should.
You also lived
I lived
there.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
G and I recently realized we both lived
There at the exact same time.
At the exact same time. Like we may have met.
Yeah. We should really like compare notes and
Might have
Yeah.
passed
figure
each
out.
other the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
I don't know anything. I just know the Gold Coast. It sounds
Actually,
fancy.
You were on the Gold Coast, right?
I was on the
Yeah.
Gold Coast. I was on the Gold Coast for the first 7.5 months. And then I milked cows for 4 months. And then I worked in a bunch of bars in Melbourne.
I just thought of like a cow in Australia mooing. Is it more?
You know what? That was low-hanging fruit, and I respect it.
Thank you.
I used to do this thing, speaking of Australian accents, so I would ask friends, like, hey, if you had a pet cheetah, like the animal, and it was in this world married to another cheetah, and you found out that cheetah had an affair on its spouse, what would that cheetah be? And then they'd always be like, the cheetah is the cheetah. And I would just be like, yeah. And nobody would get it except for me.
Yeah.
Until I pointed it out, I'm like, you realize it's the same word.
It's the same.
They're like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like, none of them kind of funny, but like to date, one of my favorite bits for just me.
In Australia, actually, I know this is kind of like a side combo, but one of my friends in Australia was like trying to teach me how to do the accent, which I ended up being able to do kind of okay. But he would get you to say, riding in a purple car with bananas and pears.
Okay.
Did you ever hear that?
No.
And so you'd have to say like, riding in a purple car with bananas and pears.
Wait, that was really good. I only know that if you say rise up lights, it sounds like an Australian saying razor blades. So like rise up lights.
Oh,
Yeah, rise up
that's
lights.
good.
Yeah.
That's
Rise
good.
of lights.
I
It's
like
rise of
that.
lights.
Like a bogue in Australia.
Yeah.
Rise up lights.
The letters, if you say the letters R, the letter N, and then the letter R.
R&R.
It took me a second.
I was like, do you mean like rest and relaxation?
Yeah, I know.
Like, okay. Rock and roll. So we're going to do the next episode in Australia.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Let's move on to a new segment, because every segment now is new.
Yeah.
We were calling this one I'm Not a Therapist, but where we basically say like, I'm not a therapist, but like, have you done like this and that? And I'm trying to think of, I had one in mind and now it's escaping me. So does anyone have?
Do you have one?
No.
No?
Okay.
It's totally fine if you don't.
See,
We should.
we should have planned this. I know. I was trying to think of what I would do for like each segment, and this was the only one I kept catching myself on. But it was as I was listening to Taylor Swift, of course. So I was like, I'm not a therapist, but listen to Taylor Swift. And the reason I'm pointing her out this early on is because I want to establish how diehard of a Swiftie I am, so that if it ever comes up in current events, which it will, because she's the biggest human in the world right now,
she's a big deal.
I would love to be the token diehard Swiftie on this couch.
I think done. That's fair. And we were talking about this a little before, but I didn't realize how famous Taylor Swift is.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And I also didn't realize like how dumb it is that I didn't realize that. I know she's like, famous, don't get me wrong, but I didn't realize she's like, I think she's literally the most famous person, like the most famous person in the world.
Yeah, she is the most famous
I feel like it depends on who you ask, but I feel like most people would probably agree with that. Because like her tour right now is like making billions of dollars.
Yeah, it's like the highest grossing. I think it will be the highest grossing tour of all time. And she's only she's coming to Toronto to do shows, but wasn't going to because there was no stadium big enough.
Yeah.
Rogers Center Skydome is not that big.
It was like 56,000 people.
One of my good friends and her partner, they tried to get tickets to the Toronto show. Obviously, it didn't happen because like over 22 million people signed up for the pre-sale.
I think it was 31 million.
Oh, Jesus.
31 million, yeah.
They are going to Portugal to see her because they got tickets off of like a different site that wasn't Ticketmaster. The only place they were able to get Taylor Swift tickets was in Portugal. Well, they're gonna like spend some time there as well and hang out, but the reason that they're going is to see Taylor Swift.
Oh my God. I'm envious of them.
Yeah.
I'm envious of them because I still haven't been able to see her, and I had opening night tickets that my partner Jay bought for us for my birthday, but all in all, it was going to be so expensive to go. It was going to cost like $3,000 to $4,000 for one night in Glendale, Arizona, which is so random.
Yeah.
And we were about to take this big month-long UK trip, and we were like, and he was the one being like, no, I want you to go. Like, let's go, let's do it. And he's like, I could just pay for it all. And I'm like, no,
Jay.
that's way too expensive, man. And also, I was so convinced she was going to come to Canada. And then when she did, I didn't even get a code for a ticket. And I was like...
People were pissed.
Oh, yeah.
I'm actually nervous that I just said on a recorded podcast that I didn't realize how famous she is. That, like, Taylor Nation...
Swifties.
See, like, I feel like I'm going to get...
Canceled?
Like, yeah, I'm going to get canceled.
Canceled before we even begin.
The next episode airs, I'm just gone.
Yeah.
Well, I remember I co-hosted Taylor Swift trivia at Snakes and Lattes with Sarah Jenkins, who's a popular TikToker and vlogger from Toronto. She is a huge Taylor Swift fan. I think she went to Pittsburgh to see her. I realized, I was like, going into it, I was like, I'm a fan, but like I looked up her set list from one of her shows and I was like, I would have known like maybe 15%. And she's playing like 3-hour shows.
Yeah, 3.5.
So like the deep cuts, I don't know the deep cuts.
The last album I know well. I'm like digging myself in a deeper hole. Getting like dogs by Taylor Swift
Midnight?
fans. No, or
like
what's the one with like
Evermore?
I'll be
living in a big
Am I aging myself?
Okay, well that's to your credit. It's the Speak Now album, which is her third album out of 10. But it's her. It is the one she most recently re-recorded, so it's probably why it came up in here.
Ready to dig myself into a deeper hole. I haven't listened to any of the Taylor's versions yet.
Well, then I don't know what to tell you.
Now you're gonna get
or maybe I have. If I just look it up, if I just listen to it on Spotify, it's the Taylor's version, right?
It'll say in brackets Taylor's version.
Can we cut this? Now I'm actually nervous.
For the record, though,
I actually can't get myself canceled.
You know what I love, though? I feel like there is an opportunity if people listening care at all, but also because I will do anything to bring up Taylor Swift at any time. Yeah. If you don't know her deep cuts, either of you, I would be happy to take you through it on like a little separate podcast.
We do like a podcast episode. We'll start a Patreon, and the bonus content could be like just like for the Swifties.
Yeah. Let's see if anyone is interested in that, because I'm certainly interested in taking you guys through it.
I would love that. No, and I like the Taylor Swift I've listened to. Like, I like all of her old stuff.
Yeah. Her new stuff is better.
Apparently, it's
better.
gotta check out the Taylor's versions.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
yeah.
Her new stuff is better. If you like her old stuff, yeah.
JK, I've listened to a lot of the Taylor's versions. This is a bit.
On the note of not realizing how famous she
Right,
was.
that part's true. Not a bit.
Right. This is like an ongoing conversation with my friends, and I know they were probably waiting for the moment I brought this up because of what you just said.
Yeah.
But it's this discussion with some of my guy friends, and I don't know if they'd still say it now because I don't think you could argue this anymore.
Okay.
But my friend said once that, because I said, who do you think is like the Michael Jackson of our generation? Michael Jackson in star power, not in like anything else.
I was like, wow.
'Cause
Like,
that's, yeah.
In terms of, if
Like-
it was anything else, it'd be a very weird way of phrasing that question.
Very weird way of phrasing that question. I was trying to argue that at that point it felt like Beyonce was the closest, or even Taylor Swift with the records she breaks could have been the closest. But they were trying to argue that Drake was the closest. And I was like, I do not think that Drake deserves that title.
No, I would agree that Drake does not deserve that title.
Yeah.
I don't know who
To
would
the,
like.
to the Drakies out there, we like Drake. Is that
We like Drake.
Is that what they call themselves? Drake?
I'm like iffy. I don't know how I feel about Drake. I think I
I
like
think it's
him.
also hard to associate comparing him to Michael Jackson, just because like the genres of music are different, and I don't. It's,
It's
So
more
in
like
re-
star power.
Okay, because like I was gonna say in regards to like music, someone that came to mind for me randomly was Bruno Mars.
That's
Oh,
funny.
for music, I get
For
that.
music,
For
I get
music,
it,
yeah.
and star power kind of because like Bruno Mars is very famous and successful, but
It's
like
not like Beatles level, like you see them and people
Right.
faint.
I feel like Taylor Swift
feel
would
like-
be
I was-
the answer.
Yeah.
What about? Hear me out. Let me blow your mind for a second here.
Can I blow your mind?
Harry Styles a little bit because he also came from a bigger group. They weren't like brothers, but they were like but they were like kind of brothers a little bit, you know.
That is that is,
And now he's huge.
yeah. I actually didn't consider that because when my friends and I started that conversation, Harry Styles was not part of that.
Right,
He didn't have that.
What
were
era
the
of Taylor Swift did this conversation originate during?
This came right after she released Folklore Evermore. So this was around 2021 and
so,
later.
like recently.
So
yeah.
So I don't think I can name a single song from that album. Is that bad?
I can only name a couple.
Actually, wait. What's the hit? I feel like I'm sound.
Well, the thing
50
is,
years old.
Well, I know some songs from
no
it.
offense, anyone 50.
I know songs from both albums, but I just don't
You're
know
really
which
working on
one.
not getting canceled.
I just-
Drakeys, we love you. Swifties, we love you. 50-year-olds, we love you.
I don't know. Like, there's Folklore and Evermore, but I don't know which songs are from which because I know August,
Folklore.
Champagne Problems.
Evermore.
Okay, see, like I would have gone the other way.
Taylor Swift has a song called Champagne Problems.
Yeah.
That sounds like a Drake song.
It does, doesn't it?
Wow, I didn't
Also,
really
it's a
think
great
about that.
song name.
I think Taylor Swift and Harry Styles would be my answer for that. For the Michael Jackson star power.
Beyonce too, I think. Beyonce, like, she's people consider her a god.
Well, she's been
basically.
consistently, I think, at like what Taylor Swift is now. Like Taylor
I think
Swift,
you're
like,
right.
I'm like, oh my god, she's this like insanely famous person. I feel like Beyonce's always been there, and like in my head, which I realize is probably not the right take on everything. Like I feel like Taylor Swift caught up to where Beyonce is, but they're both at that level. Like, they can sell at the same size venues.
Yeah, I know what you mean when you say that. When you look at discography, like records sold, because I've really deep dived into this when getting into this conversation with people. Taylor outshines Beyonce sometimes when it comes to sales and sold out shows, and Beyonce obviously like clowns everybody else at other times. But Rihanna is weirdly
she's
atop the lists. And with Taylor, as much as I am absolutely literally obsessed with her, when I say obsessed with her, I Google her name every day.
Just to like see
just to see if anything new has happened. Listen, I live a very complex, beautiful, full life. However, Taylor Swift takes up such a solid part of my life that I unapologetically, I will never back down from like how non-socially acceptably obsessed with her I am.
I respect that.
I would never like chase her car like some Swifties have been doing and like crash the wedding that she was attending, because that's like psycho behavior.
That's what, by the way, was the light bulb of like, whoa, she's really famous when I read that story.
Yeah. But I will Google her name every day, and I will, and I have done this, book out Airbnbs for the entire month of January 2025 for Vancouver, because I heard that she might book Vancouver.
And you're like,
so you're into her.
But then,
Oh yeah.
You're like-
yeah.
you're
I'm
a
in it.
fan.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I'm I'm in it.
Honest question. If we heard right now, oh, Taylor Swift's about to drive by where we're filming right now, would you run out?
No. And
Okay.
here's why.
Like, I think I would run out.
Here's why.
I would consider it.
I
Yeah.
met her last year.
Oh.
So
What?
I have never ever, not even for Taylor Swift, waited outside because I heard that they were there or whatever.
Right.
But last year there was a moment where I found out that she had submitted her short film, the All Too Well short film
yeah.
that she had directed, to TIFF.
The 10-minute version.
The 10-minute version.
I'm saying it like he knows it.
Yeah.
She directed a film?
Yeah, she did.
So
And-
for a song of hers.
Okay.
yeah, but not only that, she's directed a lot of her music videos, and now she just got greenlit by Searchlight Pictures to direct a feature-length film
Okay.
Good
for one of her
her.
stories. I know, she's killing it. Anyway, so I found out she submitted the thing to TIFF, and this was right when I started dating my partner Jay, and I was trying to tell him how obsessed with Taylor I am. I don't think he really realized until I was like, listen, never done this before, but I have a feeling I might just see her. And she hadn't made an appearance since 2019, and this is 2022.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was like, she's coming to Toronto. She never does. I just wanted to maybe see her walk by, and I lived in Toronto at the time, so it wasn't that crazy.
Yeah.
And so he was like, all right, I'll go with you. Meanwhile, we set up around this barrier beside the building where she was supposed to go in. Okay? This barrier contained cars. It was a parking lot. There was no reason for us to set up that barrier, but for some reason, all of us did. All these other Swifties, we were all like, I just have a feeling, I have a feeling that we might see her if we stand around this one boxed encasement with all these black cars in it. And they were parked cars. There was no one in them. I'm going to condense this story as much as possible. We're there for hours. I'm like standing and making friends with the Swifties beside me. I'm definitely the tallest one there. I can see
Wait,
over
I gotta ask, like over under 3 hours?
less than 3 hours,
Okay.
but I was prepared to wait for longer than 3 hours because she had already gone in. And I was like, I still feel like she's coming out. Meanwhile, my partner Jay, this is how I knew he was the one. He was not interested in Taylor Swift at all at that point, but he staked out he like swept the outside of the building being like, I think she's gonna come out here. And and I'm like, I had him on speakerphone with all the other Swifties, and they're like, thank you. and this was like really, it was now like a group event, right?
Yeah.
I told Jay, I was like, as much as I think that you're right, that because now she's in the building, that you were right, you saw her car go in, I need to stay here because I had just like wedged my way in the front row. So I was like, I can't let go of this spot. So we find out she's inside. Many Swifties leave, and I decide I'm like, I'm just gonna sit down. I'm gonna wait. I'm like, I didn't come this far. I don't only come this far. I'm just gonna see if I see her, and that's fine. We sit down, and all of a sudden, this alleyway door within the encasement opens. Bodyguards step out. She steps out in this incredible, I don't know if you guys have seen what she looked like, but when she came to Toronto, she had this like gold dress, like floor length, and she just walked out, and we scrambled to our feet, and we were like, oh my god. And she goes straight to this side of the barrier, and I can see she's taking pictures, she's meeting people, but she's moving quick, like taking pictures with people, not even really talking to them. She's just like, thank you, okay, cool.
On to the next.
And I'm realizing I'm at the front of the barrier.
Oh god.
I'm not only did I succeed in seeing Taylor Swift, I'm about to meet Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
I need to get my fucking shit together. And I'm like, I'm like, this isn't the time to panic. And I always wondered what I would do when I knew I was going to meet Taylor Swift, and I was like, I might vomit on her, I might like just cry, But I was shaking like a leaf, but I was like, I think I've got this. And she comes through, and I was like, I've got to say something that she might remember. And I knew that Taylor and I are the same height. We're both 6 feet. So we were towering over everyone else. So all I could think of when she comes here, and maybe I'll cut this into the video. I have the video. Everyone else like pulled out their cameras, and they were allowing her to take pictures. But I was like, I want a video. I don't need a picture.
Yeah.
So I had it on a video. She comes through, and she looks at me, and she's like, hey. And I was like, you look stunning. She's like, so do you. And she grabs my phone, and I was like, it's a video, because I wanted to make sure she didn't accidentally stop recording by pressing the picture.
Oh my God.
And I was like, it's a video. And I was like, Tall Girls Unite. Tall Girls Unite is the only thing I could think of. I sounded so stupid.
I know, but like I love that.
Yeah,
though.
I was like, Tall Girls Unite, because we were so much taller than everyone else. And she laughed, and she's like, oh, amazing. And she goes, hi, like to the camera. And she gives the phone back to me. She goes, it's nice to meet you. And I was like, it's nice to meet you too.
I feel like fainting right now. Like I feel like I have like secondhand like Swifty.
I know.
Swiftitis.
You got like a legitimate chat in with her.
Yeah, and of course I combed through the videos she had with everyone else, and she did not have a conversation with anyone else in that line.
Because you're tall.
It's because I'm tall.
Tall girls unite.
It's because in that moment I was like,
TGU.
I saw her team. I saw her team trying to rush her, and I was like, this is I'm going to demand like a quick 4 seconds with her by like talking to her rather than just being like, hi, like, isn't it time to be meek, like, and starstruck, even though I was so fucking starstruck.
I'm so, like, I love that for you.
That's a great story.
I also would very much love to see the video of that.
I will absolutely show it to you after we stop recording, and I'll cut it in.
Let's cut that in.
Tall girls unite. Hi. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. My cousin. I didn't get a picture. Oh my god.
Should we read some emails?
Yeah, definitely.
So, okay, one of the main things we do on this podcast is we ask you to send stories of just like crazy shit that's happened at your work, whether it's in the past or it's ongoing, and we just talk about it. So let's do that.
I love how that whole segment was not at all about therapy or like anything we.
Basically, I'm not a therapist, but you should be a fan of Taylor Swift.
You should be a fan of Taylor Swift.
Is the goal there?
Because her lyrics are basically therapy.
Yeah. Also, you explaining the podcast at the beginning, I feel like what we're about to do is like a key part of it.
Yeah.
We didn't even mention like we'll chat through work stories.
Yeah. Okay, so keeping it anonymous. This is an email. I spent almost 10 years with Verizon Wireless as a customer service rep, and my final position was overnight tech support, which that sounds awful. I would not want to do that. There's no shortage of stories in either department, so I had to dig deep and find a gem. It was July 4th, and I had roughly 2 hours to go before my shift was done. I took a call from a woman who right off the bat was all over the place. I decided she'd be my last call. What a ride she took me on. She told me she was trying to send a pic of herself. This was 2007, so selfies weren't quite the rage. To her brother, who lived in a monastery. She was having quite a tough time though, because she only had 1 arm and 3 fingers. She was also calling from the phone, complicating things further. The absolute psychobabble that flowed from her lips was really something. I couldn't find a spot to muscle in and let her know that I couldn't offer much assistance unless she had another phone I could call her on, so at some point I just let her go and run the show until my shift ended.
I have way more questions.
Answers. So many questions.
Yeah.
Like, my first one is, what was the selfie and why was it to her brother?
Yeah.
He's in a monastery. Just like, it sounds...
And does she have all those appendages or loss of appendages because of something? Like, I have so many questions about why.
Yeah. Also, like, overnight tech support, do people willingly want that kind of job? Like, I feel like a night owl would probably love that kind of job.
Yeah.
He might be
a night owl.
He might be a night owl, but
right.
Also, I mean, 10 years at Verizon. It's a long time. How many? The person had 3 fingers in total. Sorry.
So, it was. She only had 1 arm and 3 fingers.
Okay.
And she was also calling from the phone, complicating things further. I feel like calling Verizon for a problem like that, like, did she expect them to have the answer? I don't know. Like, I feel like that's not a thing that a phone company would be able to assist with.
I'm just thinking how to say this nicely. The person calling, I've got to assume had some psychological challenges.
Yeah.
Like, not...
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
I feel like I've already canceled myself. It's like maybe it had something going on.
Wait, can we title this episode 1 Zach Gets Canceled?
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, like, I get it. Also, I feel like that is the kind of situation where you do need to just let them talk it out.
And not just that, but I think quickly, especially after 10 years at Verizon, you would hopefully be able to suss out, is this a prank call?
Right.
Yeah.
Or like, is the person just laying it on thick, or do I actually...
Yeah.
Especially in 2007, I feel like prank calls were much more of a thing than they are now.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
that's
Now,
true.
Exactly.
Are prank calls still...
That's a great question. I was about to ask the same thing. Because I feel like you could just immediately find...
I feel like what we've lost with prank calls, we now just have in scam calls.
Such a shame. Because I
Yeah.
used to be a real prankster when I was growing up, and scams are not nearly as fun.
I also used to be a bit of a prankster, so much so, I remember just very briefly in elementary school, my friends and I would always call, I think it was a Domino's Pizza, and we would always fuck around with them, and looking back, awful.
We were assholes.
And I remember so vividly, it was like on my first cell phone in school, someone called me, and they said they were calling from the police in regards to a complaint about prank calls.
Oh my god.
And I remember saying, I'm at school, you can't call me right now, and then I hung up. and then they never called back. So a part of me now is looking back thinking like, A, like I was a piece of shit for prank calling them so much, but B, I was like, damn, like, was that actually the police calling me, or was that maybe the pizza place trying to get back at me?
Yeah. So did you never press star 67? Or star 69?
Oh, maybe we didn't. Because I was gonna say, isn't it pound 31?
If you didn't, then like, honey.
That might be on me. That might be on me. Here, we got one. This one, we won't say who it's from, but this is from a friend. A
friend of the show.
Yeah.
A friend of the show.
Yeah.
So he says, "Hi friends." See, because he's a friend. I feel like there's probably a bunch more stories of this kind, but let me tell y'all what happened. I think Geneva might have heard about this one, or might have also been on the call at the time. LOL. While I was on an important weekly client meeting, one where we give updates on all ongoing/upcoming projects, I had a moment of frustration, which I expressed thinking I was on mute, but lo and behold, I was in fact not on mute. Everybody's worst nightmare. There was another project manager giving her update on her project, and there wasn't a launch date specified in the Excel spreadsheet, and the client still didn't know when the launch date was going to be. To give you some context, it's extremely frustrating to plan a project and have it move forward/backward every week based on the client. This wasn't anything new to us PMs. We got pretty used to having things shift around all the time. During this update from the other PM, while this wasn't even my project, I yelled into my computer something along the lines of course there isn't a fucking launch date yet. Our client, as well as everyone else internally that was on the call, heard me say that. Thankfully, our client was in a really great mood that day and she kind of laughed it off. I got at least 5 other messages from team members internally sharing my frustration and also just checking that I was okay. I guess I sounded really angry. I wasn't actually frustrated. I was just making a joke to myself in frustration. I'm glad there weren't any repercussions to my mistake and it was just laughed off. For a hot second, I thought my career was over. Haha, in all caps. Anyway, that's my work story. Hopefully this will provide others a good laugh. Cheers.
Love him.
Well, I the first question I gotta ask, were you on that call?
I was not on the call, but I saw him that day, and he was like, "Listen, this I really fucked up." I saw him afterwards. Yeah, I'm almost positive I was not on that call because I felt I saw him so closely to it because I don't remember hearing him say it, so I must not have been in the call. But I saw him that day, and he told me about it. It was the kind of thing where like for days afterwards, he was like, oh, "Fuck." He would just like think about it all over again. He's like, fuck, I shouldn't have done that.
I would be so stressed.
Yeah.
I do think a rule of thumb is in general being on like video calls. Also, like as somebody, I think we've all been on video calls, especially last few years. But even with mute buttons, and I know like you're good with the mute button.
Yeah.
But even with mute buttons, just like don't talk negatively about whoever you're talking to. Yeah. Just in case.
Yeah. Just in
type
case.
It. Like on Slack or on Teams. Like type it to complain to somebody, but like, don't say it out loud. But just in case.
Yeah.
Also, I think the only thing is messaging, and this could just be me overthinking it. If you're messaging someone on Slack about someone, I feel like everyone needs to have their stuff muted, because if you hear the like the notification sound, my instinct would be like, oh no, they know that, like, people wouldn't know that I'm sending them like a message about someone in the meeting, but like my thought process is like, oh, like someone's just got a message, it's probably about something going on in this meeting.
Totally.
I would absolutely overthink it. So I feel like everyone just needs to be muted.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think you should always be on mute unless you're talking.
Yes. But I think what's even more embarrassing, well, not more embarrassing, but just as embarrassing, is when someone isn't muted, but they're not paying attention to the meeting and something else is happening in the background and you hear it.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
That hasn't happened to me, thankfully, but I've been in meetings where that has happened, company-wide meetings actually, where someone was getting in an argument with their spouse. Someone was like on the phone saying that they were in a meeting, but like they didn't say anything bad about the meeting, but they're like, no, like, can I call you back in like 20 minutes? But like the head of the company was talking,
right?
And it's God.
I feel like that's where, and this is as somebody that almost happened to. I was on a company-wide call, and there was maybe like 100 people at the company, so it was like small. I guess it's smaller. I don't know.
A lot when you're in a Zoom call.
But someone yelled up to me from downstairs, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll be off in a minute." And then immediately, another friend of mine at the company came off mute and said, "Like, hey Zach, you are not on mute." And then I muted. It's like before I can go anywhere else.
Right.
Like, his friend.
That's
caught me, which is
that's
I feel
a good
like
friend.
That's a good person. That's a very good friend.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
There was this. I actually that friend of ours. I made him feel better by telling him this story about this other girl who did worse on a call. Let's call her Sam. Let's call her Val.
Val 2.
Let's call her Val. We were all in like a updates call where everyone was giving their updates for their projects and stuff like that. And someone called upon someone else while Val was off mute, but it just happened to have something to do with Val's project. So he said it, he passed the question off to one person, and then Val, who was reading an email at the time, goes, "Fuck you, dude." And then she was like, "Oh man, oh my god, I'm so sorry. That wasn't meant to you." But for all intents and purposes, it seemed like it was directed towards him because it was about her project. It was the timing was horrible.
Oh.
Yeah, she felt real bad about that.
That would destroy me, even though it wasn't done on purpose or like to Val or whoever it was. I would still it would ruin me.
Yeah. Also, I think I would keep spinning out in my head thinking there's no way people would believe me that I was in fact reading an email and not saying "fuck you, dude" about that because it was her project.
Yeah. Oh my god. Those are the emails for this episode. Keep sending emails to us. thankyoukindlypodcast@gmail.com. Don't feel like you have to, but if you want to, that's where you can send it because I feel like everybody has a crazy work story that needs to be discussed, and then some.
Or for Dick and Man, you're like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah,
we can help with that too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. If you want advice and it'll be anonymous unless stated otherwise.
Yeah. I'm waiting for an email that says use my name.
Use my name. But yeah, if you need advice or anything in between, honestly, we're down. Clearly, the topics have varied in this podcast. Yeah. We are down for
Australia, Taylor Swift, work.
Yes.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We're gonna keep messing around with things as we continue to make new episodes. So who knows what'll happen in episode 2? That's all part of the fun. Thank you kindly for listening.
Thank you kindly.
And
we'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Can you imagine we went through that whole thing without being recorded?
I realized it's
49 minutes.